And our opening words this morning are by Mary Harrington. We come together today in praise and thanksgiving for the gift of life itself. Someone gave birth to us, and some of us have given birth. All of us have been mothered in our time. All of us have mothered. Let our time today be one of recognition that we arrive from so many places, joy and delight, wistfulness and longing and worry, unmet needs and unfulfilled dreams, loss and sorrow, loss and emptiness, loss and regret. All that life is made of, mothers are made of too. Today we sing the songs of so many, mothers who are single parents, foster parents, mothers who relinquished their young out of necessity, mothers who found their heart in adoption, mothers who left their children in 1,000 ways, mothers who rejoice, and mothers who mourn. We sing the songs of the grandmother, the auntie, the classroom teacher, the Sunday school teacher, the babysitter, the neighbor with endless cookies and time. There is a kind of love we cannot live without. And it's never too late, no matter our age or situation. We sing a song of gratitude for all the moments of being known, being cherished, being found. After our spoken prayer and a time of silent meditation, we'll sing together Spirit of Life, which you can find in your order of service. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, be with us in this time of prayer. We lift up in prayer this morning all those who have loved us perfectly and imperfectly, past and present, known and unknown. We lift up in prayer this morning all those who we love perfectly and imperfectly, past and present, those we know and those we care for even though we have never met them. For we are linked together far beyond our knowing. May our prayers extend and extend until they hold in their healing circle all who are in need of love. May we be vessels of that love. We who are broken, we who are whole, we who are lonely, we who are in love, we who are mothers and fathers, we who are daughters and sons, we who are friends, we who are isolated, we who are confident, and we who are afraid. Birth in us the love that we wish we had received, and help us to share it unconditionally with the world. Amen. Our reading this morning is a poem by one of my heroes, Geoffrey Canada. Author, educator, and activist, he wrote a wonderful book that I recommend to all of you called Fist, Stick, Knife, Gun, A Personal History of Violence in America. He is the president and CEO of the Harlem Children's Zone in New York, an organization whose goal is to increase high school and college graduation rates among students in Harlem by using a holistic approach to support all aspects of life in that community. And this is his poem, A Small Army of Love. Heard the news yesterday, and today mothers cried, our children by tens of thousands have died. And for what? What will stop this madness, the eternal sadness of small little caskets filled with dreams never had? Are we mad? We need a small army of love, and no thanks. We don't need any rifles, no guns, and no tanks, just love and help from above. Our army will be small, diverse, and unique, little soldiers in braids and some with sneakered feet, all marching for peace and an end to the war that has claimed little soldiers as they open their doors and romp in the playgrounds. Can we stand anymore? We need a small army of love. Start today, sentries on guard keeping danger away, while our young go to school and play on our streets, a small army of us standing guard while they sleep. Can it be done? And the love of our army will always sustain us while others disdain us with laughs, ridicule. Our love keeps us fighting. Yeah, we're fighting fools. So I know what's been whispered and what some said aloud, those fools with their pipe dreams, their heads in the clouds. But when you love all the children, there's nothing to do but start a small army of love, me and you. In 1870, Julia Ward Howe, an abolitionist, social activist, poet, Unitarian, and author of the Battle Hymn of the Republic, was tired from the bloodshed of the Civil War. Following with a sinking heart the news of the start of the Franco-Prussian War in Europe, Julia broadcast a message of peace to women around the world. Her Mother's Day proclamation called women of every nation to speak out for peace. I'll read it to you now, and it is also number 573 in your hymn books if you want to spend more time with her words. Arise then, women of this day. Arise, all women who have hearts, whether our baptism be of water or of tears. Say firmly, we will not have great questions decided by irrelevant agencies. Our husbands will not come to us reeking with carnage for caresses and applause. Our sons shall not be taken from us to unlearn all that we have been able to teach them of charity, mercy, and patience. We, the women of one country, will be too tender of those of another country to allow our sons to be trained to injure theirs. From the bosom of the devastated earth, a voice goes up with our own. It says, disarm, disarm. The sword of murder is not the balance of justice. Blood does not wipe out dishonor, nor violence indicate possession. As men have often forsaken the plow and the anvil at the summons of war, let women now leave all that may be left of home for a great and earnest day of council. Let them meet first as women to bewail and commemorate the dead. Let them solemnly take counsel with each other as to the means whereby the great human family can live in peace, each bearing after his own time the sacred impress not of Caesar, but of God. In the name of womanhood and humanity, I earnestly ask that a general Congress of women without limit of nationality may be appointed and held at some place deemed most convenient and at the earliest period consistent with its objects to promote the alliance of the different nationalities, the amicable settlement of international questions, the great and general interests of peace. 2 years later, still convinced that women could make a difference in the world by focusing on peace, Julia Ward Howe began advocating the creation of a Mother's Day for Peace, to be held in the spring of each year. The following year, 18 cities held such a gathering. Bostonians continued to observe the day for more than a decade, and some other cities continued the observance until the end of the turn of the century, when the annual Mother's Day for Peace appears to have died out. In 1907, though, Anna Jarvis, a Methodist inspired by the legacy of her own mother, began a campaign to establish a permanent Mother's Day. By the following year, the YMCA had taken up the cause, and in 1914, Woodrow Wilson signed a congressional resolution establishing Mother's Day in the United States. In time, the day came to be marked in many other countries as well. Jarvis was later troubled by the commercialization of Mother's Day, saying, "I wanted it to be a day of sentiment, not profit." Totally opposed to the sale of flowers, but not the giving of homegrown bouquets, she also lamented the advent of the Mother's Day card, describing it as a poor excuse for the letter you are too lazy to write. This morning, we continue the tradition of Mother's Day, honoring our mothers, those still with us, those who have died, those who we never knew, and being honored by our children. And there are people right now, thousands of them, honoring Mother's Day in a way that Julia Ward Howe would be proud of, and I think Anna Jarvis too. There are thousands of people in Dorchester this morning walking for peace. And although I am here with you now and happy to be in your good company and dry, I have to let you know that half of my heart is where I was last year at this time, walking with a crowd of thousands in that Mother's Day walk for peace. I'll tell you why. And I didn't know that my colleague, Reverend Rebecca Ingram, would be here today, but she might resonate with some of these words. The Mother's Day Walk for Peace was begun in 1996 by the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute as a way for families who had lost their children to violence to create a witness for peace. On a day that is set aside to celebrate mothers and children, the walk became a place for families and friends to feel support and love with thousands of others who pledge their commitment to peace. Through the years, it has become a way for people in and around Boston to financially support the work of the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute. I know some of the folks at the Peace Institute. We worked with them when I was a community minister in Roxbury at the UU Urban Ministry. They gave us training in how to help teens and communities through trauma after acts of violence. We needed to have those skills. Maybe you'd think a minister would already have these skills, but I can tell you that nothing in my educational background had prepared me for helping children and teens process the murder of their peers. I was shocked when we led our first healing circle after one young man was gunned down on a basketball court down the street. And we asked the middle schoolers in the circle to raise their hand if they had lost a friend to gun violence. More than half of them raised their hand. And I remember another night when we were doing mock college interviews with our high school students. Each of the juniors and seniors at the Urban Ministries Roxbury Youth Programs is paired with a college coach who can help them to navigate the college process, since often they are the first one in their family to go to school beyond high school. But for the interviews, we brought in strangers. It made it feel more like a real interview. But unlike a real interview, at the end of each session, the teens got feedback that could help them, and they could try again with someone else. Just as an aside, we also gave an award in the category of most appropriately dressed. If we could see your underwear coming up above your pants, you were not even considered for the award. The kids learned so much from these practice runs. Small things like having a strong handshake and taking your headphones completely off, what to wear, and how to have a question ready for your interviewer. On this particular night, we were one volunteer short, and so I was interviewing one of our senior boys. We were working on not mumbling and on taking a minute to think before answering a question. A big thing was not to use acronyms that the interviewer wouldn't know. Say you're with an after-school tutoring program called the Roxbury Youth Programs, I coached him. If you just say, I go to RYP, they won't know what you're talking about. I asked this boy about his summer job, which turned out to be painting murals. He was giving very short answers, offering no detail. I tried to get him talking. What were the murals of that you were painting? I asked. Well, they were of our friends. You know, friends who've been killed and stuff. I hadn't seen that coming. I tried to regain composure, but I couldn't seem to continue with the questions as planned. I had new questions. How many of your friends have been killed? I asked. A bunch. That must be so hard, I said, struggling for words. I'm not sure how I would handle that, I admitted. Yeah, he said, it's hard. You just can't think about it all the time, you know? And he began to teach me, in mumbles, with not much detail, how to handle the unspeakable grief of losing friend after friend to violence, how to keep going, how not to be scared all the time, but to continue to have hopes and dreams, how to use art like those murals to process grief and to memorialize those you have lost. After that interview, I felt closer to this young man. I think all of our interviewers looked differently at the teens after that night. Many of them had had experiences like I had, pairs of people who never would have met otherwise. And more than just their impressions of our teens had changed, I think that they might look differently now at all teens, particularly young black men, however they are dressed. I recognize that it is totally unfair that a teenage boy should have to teach me about violence and loss and resilience, when I would rather protect him from all those things. But it's his story that makes the violence in Boston feel personal to me and not just to him. And we need more of that. Because you see, since Marathon Monday and the horrific event that drew the sympathy of the world, 6 people have been shot and killed in Roxbury and Dorchester the neighborhoods in which I used to work. And there needs to be more outrage about that. I know that sometimes this urban violence doesn't feel personal, but I can't feel that way anymore. That changed for me when I was interviewing that young man and got to hear his story. That changed for me when I was face painting at our community fair and a young boy asked me to paint a dragon on one arm and R.I.P. Wheezy on the other arm. That changed for me when my colleague and friend Ashley was shot and almost killed on her way home from work. And when I had to tell a circle of elementary school kids why she wasn't going to be with us that day. I have hesitated to share these stories with you, in part because they are still so fresh and so raw, but also because I fear that they will enforce stereotypes and fears you may have about certain neighborhoods of Boston. And also because I still struggle with feelings of guilt about leaving the kids and adults I love behind in a place that is not safe for them. But I'm also leaving them in a place that is full of strength, resilience, and love. A place full of culture and diversity and food from around the world. A place full of urban gardens and neighborhood associations. A place of deep history and amazing architecture. A place that is Boston strong. I am leaving them in a place full of kids that I have come to know and love who are going to change the world. And those kids are walking today in the Mother's Day Walk for Peace. They are walking for Ashley. It's not just in faraway lands and distant wars that we must call for peace. It's in our own backyard, in our own cities and communities. It's in our own extended families, and in the ways we grow and learn to call one another family. I did send my mother a Mother's Day card this year, and inside the card it says, "A donation has been made in your name to the Louis D. Brown Peace Institute and the Mother's Day Walk for Peace." I believe we really do need to get back to that original meaning of Mother's Day. We need a Mother's Day for peace. We need this violence to be personal to all of us, not just some of us. Because when you love all the children, there's nothing to do but start a small army of love, me and you. Amen, and blessed be.